Okay, so so we have already of the 4 kinds of sampajanya, clear comprehension. We have already went through, discussed about the first 3. Okay? So sataka sampajanya, clear comprehension of what is beneficial, and sappaya sampajana, clear comprehension of what is suitable. So that means discerning clearly in the mind whether an action that you're about to do, whether it is beneficial, whether it is suitable. So beneficial, suitable to the growth in the Dhamma. Okay? So the practice of the Dhamma. Okay? So for the beneficial, suitable for development of sila, of samadhi, of panya. So not beneficial and suitable for becoming more rich, getting more money, more power. Not like this. Okay? Yeah. This is bhavana. Bhavana means development of wholesome mental states, okay? Making it grow. So wholesome states. Okay? Sila, samadhi, panya, these are wholesome states. Okay? Making it grow, making it strong. So considering whether it's beneficial or suitable towards this end. And then gochara sampajanya, the comprehension domain, also we have discussed, simply means to keep with clear comprehension, a clear mind, keep within domain of a yogi, the domain of satipatthana. So this simply means continuous noting. Okay? So as long as you are noting, following the instruction of satipatthana, every moment, not precisely, not with ardent, energetic effort, with mindfulness, with clear comprehension, not with the strength of mind, strength of mindfulness and concentration, strength of insight, in order to put away mental defilements, and to not like this continuously. Okay? So doing so, you remain within the domain of satipatthana, your own territory, the yogi's territory. So it simply means continuous practice. Okay. So then the last one, the last clear comprehension is asamoha sampajanya. Okay? So clear comprehension of non-delusion. Okay? So clear comprehension, non-delusion. This means clear knowledge with regards to going forward, returning, looking ahead, looking to the side, and so on. Okay? So the clear knowledge, discerning clearly. Discerning clearly with a mind that is free from delusion, that this process, going forward, returning, looking straight, looking to the side, and so on, that this is a process, a mental, physical process, without any person, any self, any I. Okay? So basically it's insight, particularly insight into nature anatta. Okay? So, and asamoha sampajanya is a result of gochara sampajanya. Okay? So it's a result of clear comprehension domain. Okay? So when the yogi makes careful effort in order to remain continuously within the domain of satipatthana, noting continuously each mental physical nature that arises within the experience. Okay? So as the yogi notes continuously remaining within the domain continuously, the mindfulness develops. Okay? So when mindfulness has developed sufficient momentum due to continuous energetic noting, when he has developed sufficient momentum, then the samadhi concentration is established. And then based on this samadhi, this asamoha sampajanya arises. Okay? This clear comprehension, non-delusion. Okay? So it's basically wisdom, clear insight, clear knowledge. Yeah, so it arises as a result of the effort that the yogi made in gochara sampajanya, keeping continuously to the practice of satipatthana. So therefore for a yogi, there's no need to worry about asamoha sampajanya. Yeah, so long as the yogi makes effort in gochara sampajanya, develop satipatthana continuously. So this asamoha sampajanya will arise by itself before long. Once you establish, you develop the strength of mindfulness and concentration, this asamoha sampajanya will arise before long. And once it arises, the yogi will be able to discern clearly that in this process of going forward, returning and so on, there's just mental physical process present. There's no person, no self, no I, no soul. Whereas for ordinary people who do not meditate, they call anda putujana. So there are two kinds of putujana, ordinary worldling. There are two kinds. There is anda putujana, blind ordinary worldling. Okay? And then there is kalayana putujana, noble or good ordinary worldling. Okay? So kalayana putujana are those who knows the Dhamma, who lives their life according to the Dhamma, especially those who develop sila, samadhi, panya. Especially those who have experienced clearly the nature of the nama rupa through the practice of meditation. Not yet attained Maggaphala, but have experienced the insight. This is the best example of kalayana putujana. Okay? Whereas anda putujana are those who ordinary worldlings who have no knowledge of Dhamma, who do not live, even if they have knowledge of Dhamma, do not live their life in conformity with Dhamma, do not practice the Dhamma. Right? So they are called blind putujana. Okay? In a sense, they do not have this knowledge, they do not see in accordance with Dhamma, even theoretically. Right? So not to say direct experience. So those blind ordinary worldling who do not meditate, so because they do not keep within the territory of Satipatthana. Okay? Do not note continuously. Okay? So, so because of that, they are always outside the domain. Why is outside the domain? You remember? Outside the domain of Satipatthana will be the 5 kinds of sensual objects, sensual enjoyment of the 5 kinds of sensual objects. So, which give rise to the Mara Kilesa, Kilesa Mara. So it leads you straight into the hands of Mara. Okay? So this blind ordinary worldling, they live in this domain all the time. Okay? So they are in the clutch of Mara all the time. Okay? In the stranglehold of Mara all the time. Unable to escape Mara. So because of this, needless to say, they do not possess this asamoha sampajanya, clear comprehension, non-delusion. Therefore, when they are going, when they are walking, going forward, they feel the discern clearly nature of this act of going forward as it really is. Okay, because they fall under delusion. Okay, that there is someone here, somebody here behind this act of going forward. Okay, there is a self here. Okay, so in their mind, they are thinking that it is a self that goes forward. Right? Yeah, of course, for most people, it won't be verbalized in this way. Okay, but there's just a sense in the mind, okay, that there is a self here that is going forward. Somebody here, a person here going forward. I go forward, they identify it as the I. Okay? There's a sense, right? When you're not meditating, that you are going forward. Even for yogis also, when you're not meditating, right? You have this sense. So you have this sense, the self is going forward. And sometimes you have this sense that, why is it going forward? Because of me, because of the self. Going forward is caused by the self. It is the self that caused this body to move forward. So there's this idea in the mind, whether consciously or unconsciously, verbalized or unverbalized. So under the influence of delusion, there's this sense that there is a self going forward, or there's self that is causing this act of going forward. Yeah, and you really believe it. You really believe that there really is somebody here, a person that goes forward, a person that is causing this movement of going forward. Yeah, so those who do not meditate, so you fall under the delusion, and you really believe it. There is this person here. Okay? You really believe that this person really exists. Okay? Right or wrong? Yeah. But for a yogi, how does a yogi see? So a yogi who had trained properly in order to discern clearly each moment of experience continuously. So this yogi is able to clearly discern the act of going forward for what it really is. just a series of intention or impulsion, giving rise to a series of movement, as we explained earlier. So this yogi understands clearly that when there's a thought arise, I will go forward. So this thought arise, I will go forward. Again, it may not be verbalized in this way. Sometimes it's just an urge in the mind. When the commentary says, a thought arise, I will go forward. It means simply that there's like an urge arise in the mind to go forward. It's not that literally in your mind you're thinking, now I will go forward. So it's just an urge, an impulse in the mind to go forward. So when this impulse arises in the mind, so the yogi understands when this impulse arises in the mind, immediately it produces the nature of the wind element. Not blowing. Nature of the wind element, tension, pulling, pushing. So it produces this nature. So, and this nature of wind element, whether tension, or pulling, or pushing, upon arising due to the impulse, it begins to spread. Immediately it spreads everywhere in the body, causing the movement forward. So the moment you have this impulse, you feel this nature, like when you're standing, right? So the moment you think of going forward, you can feel in the body starts, some parts start to tighten up, some parts start to pull, some parts start to push forward, right? This is the nature of the wind element arising, spreading everywhere in the body. And this causes this movement forward of this collection of materiality called the body. So when this nature of wind element spread over this body, it causes the movement forward. So the yogi simply sees this clearly, that the act of moving forward is simply this, just an impulse giving rise to the nature of the wind element causing the movement forward. And that's all there is. There's no person here, no being, no self. That's causing this moving forward. So that's how the yogi discerns. This is clear comprehension of non-delusion. You have no delusion at all in the mind that there is a person or a being or a self here. That's just the process of nama rupa. Now here the commentary goes into detail, very detailed, explaining the process of walking, what the yogi experience when he is noting the process of walking from beginning to the end. And it is from here that our practice of walking meditation is derived. So pay attention to this. But first, before we go into the explanation or commentary, first you need to understand in brief about the nature of the four elements. What are these four elements? So the wind, fire, water, and earth element. So wind element, when we say wind element, is simply the nature of support. Okay? Not literally wind blowing. Okay? So it's the nature of support. Okay? So it manifests as like tightness, tension, pulling, pushing, which causes motion and which also supports the body. Okay? How is your body supported so that it remains upright? Because there's this force, tension, tightness, pulling, pushing, holding the body up. That is the nature of the wind element. Okay? It's like the air inside a ball, right? Which pushes out from the inside, supporting it. Without that, the whole ball will collapse, right? The shape of the ball will disappear, it will collapse, become flat. Right? But because of the air inside, it supports it. Okay? So material nature, such as this support, that's the wind element. Okay? Then fire element is element of temperature, heat and cold. Okay? So both wind and fire element, they are light in nature. Light, okay? Not heavy, light. Okay? And then earth element is hardness and softness. Nature of hardness, softness, sometimes roughness, smoothness also. Okay. Then water element is element of cohesion, binding, or flowing. Okay. So flowing is when the water element is strong. Okay? So when it's weak, then it coheres, it binds together. Okay? Just like hardness and softness also. For earth element, when earth element is strong, it is hard. When it's weak, it becomes soft. Okay? It's just relative quality. Okay? So hardness and softness are actually just relative quality. Basically, it's all hardness. Okay? But when the hardness is weak, then you experience it as soft. Okay? But basically, it's still this quality of hardness. Okay? A very weak quality of hardness. Okay? So water element also, when it is strong, it's flowing, fluid. Okay? But when it's weak, it doesn't flow so much. It binds, it coheres. Okay? So both earth and water element, they are heavy in nature. Okay? Yeah. So fire and wind, they are light. Earth and water, they're heavy. Okay. So now you understand this, then we go back to the commentary. So now according to the commentary, when we are walking, when we are lifting up, when the foot is lifting up, okay? So the fire and wind element are excessive and strong. Okay? Whereas earth and water element are deficient and weak. Okay? Yeah. So wind and fire element, they are excessive and strong. And so because fire and wind element, they are light in nature. Right? So when they are strong, when they are excessive, you feel them predominant. Right? They're very clear. So that's why when you lift up, you feel lightness. You feel buoyant, right? So Like sometimes when it's very clear, it's very strong, it's as if the foot is like floating up, like on a cloud, go up, right? So, but according to the sub-commentary, so in lifting, although both the fire and wind element are excessive and strong, but in lifting, when the foot is lifting up, the fire element is dominant, whereas wind element follows behind. That means it's secondary. So this means that the lightness of the fire element is more prominent than the wind element. Okay? But in actual experience, the yogi simply experience it as lightness. Okay, so you don't worry whether this lightness, is it wind or is it fire? Don't care. Okay, so you just, if you lightness, just lightness. More than that, you are thinking. Okay, you experience things as it is. So what is that? That's lightness. So know it as it is, lightness. That's all. Okay. So don't go, what is this, how is this, why is this, no need. Okay. Lightness is just lightness, simple. Okay. And then, so after the foot has lifted up, then it pushes forward, right? It pushes forward. And sometimes it pushes sideways, right? Some yogis report, right? They don't always go straight, go to the side. Sometimes go here, go there. So it's pushing forward, and there's pushing sideways, and then there's pushing beyond. Beyond means going beyond the foot that is in front, right? So at first the foot is behind, right? And then so pushing forward means it goes towards the foot. Then once it passes by the foot, beyond that, that's called pushing beyond. Right? So there are two steps there. So, so in this three process, when pushing forward, pushing sideways, pushing beyond, again, it is the fire and wind element that is excessive and strong, and whereas earth and water element still deficient and weak. Okay, but now, unlike when lifting, so it is the fire element that is dominant, whereas the wind element is secondary. Okay? But in pushing forward or sideways or beyond, it is the wind element that is dominant, whereas the fire element follows, is secondary. Okay? So therefore, in pushing forward, sideways or beyond, is the nature of the wind element usually becomes more prominent. So usually it's here that the yogi feel the sensation of pushing, or tightness, or tension. So this nature become prominent. Okay? So lightness may still be experienced. Okay? Because both, remember, both fire and wind element are still excessive and strong. So both of them are light. So in pushing forward, also sometimes yogi may still experience the lightness. Okay, it's more of the wind element, the lightness of the wind element. Okay, yeah. Now, just because we said that the yogi will feel the nature of the wind element, the pushing, the tightness, the tension. That's because we say that this will be dominant, you feel it. It does not mean that you will feel it very, very tight or pushing very, very hard, or it's very, very tense. Usually the sensation is just very slight. Okay? Just a slight sensation of pushing or tension or tightness. Yeah. That's why your mind, you have to train your mind. When you note, you have to be focused, to be clear, to be sensitive in order to pick up this very slight nature. If you chin-chai no superficially on the surface, you report nothing, pushing forward, nothing. So you have to be really very focused, clear and sensitive when you're noting. That's why it's meditation. Walking meditation is not just to fill in the time in between sitting meditation. It is meditation. So after push forward and push beyond a certain distance, so you cannot go on forever, right? So at some point, when it's enough already, you releases the momentum of the pushing forward, right? It goes pushing, and then at some point you just release the momentum. And then the foot begin to drop down, and then presses on the floor. Okay. Now, so according to the commentary, now in releasing, in dropping down, in pressing on the floor, and now the earth and the water element becomes excessive and strong. Okay? And the wind and fire element becomes deficient and weak. Okay? So there is a change. If you are observing very carefully, you can see, you can discern this change. Okay? So every phase, there is a change. In lifting to pushing, there's a change. And now in releasing it, dropping down, pressing, there's a change. Your mind is very clear, very sensitive, observing carefully, it's clear, you will be able to discern. Okay? It's not the same. And sometimes yogi complain, when I watch, nothing seems to be changing, not much changes. There's so much changes going on. Yes, you are not observing carefully enough. Moment to moment, there's change. Okay? Okay, so now the earth and water element become excessive and strong. So the wind and fire element become weakened, deficient. So they are not so prominent anymore. They recede to the background. So according to the sub-commentary, at the point when you release the momentum of the forward movement, the water element becomes dominant, whereas the earth element follows, is secondary. Okay? Here the yogi will experience it as a momentary looseness of the matter. Okay? So you got pushing, at that one point you just release it. So everything becomes very loose. So you experience a looseness of the materiality. And it's very fast. It happens just before it drops down. Okay? So you experience this momentary looseness of the matter. Okay? For just a moment, just before it drops down, for just a moment, you discern, it become very loose. Okay? Yeah. So this is a strong nature of the water element. Yeah, so remember just now we say when water element is weak, it coheres, it binds. Okay, so when it's strong, it starts to flow, become more loose. Okay, so now you feel the looseness of matter. So there's a strong nature of the water element. Yeah? And it's just for a moment. Yeah? So that's why you need to be very alert. Otherwise, you'll not be able to catch this very brief moment. Okay? Okay. And after this momentary losing up, immediately the foot drops down and then it presses down. Okay, so according to the sub-commentary, here the earth element becomes dominant and the water element follows. It's secondary. Okay, so in dropping down, the yogi will feel the heaviness of the earth element. Okay, so and in pressing down again, you feel the hardness, softness of the earth element. Okay. Again, remember, even though we say you feel heavy, hard, and soft, it doesn't mean that it is extremely heavy or extremely hard or extremely soft. Okay, it's just a slight sensation of heaviness. Even lightness also is just a slight sensation of lightness. Okay, unless sometimes it does become very prominent and you feel like it's floating up. Heaviness also sometimes can become very prominent. Then you feel like there's a heavy weight tied onto your foot. Sometimes you can't even hold it. It's not a share and pop. So, but most of the time it's just a very slight sensation. So you need to be very alert and sensitive to discern it. Okay? Otherwise, again, you report nothing, no sensation, cannot see. And so when lifting, and the foot is lifting up, so the yogi, if you discern carefully, you note carefully, then you experience or discern the lightness. This lightness is that of mostly that of the fire element. Okay, lifting, floating up. So and moving forward or moving to the side or moving beyond, then you feel the nature of the wind element pushing, tightness, tension, and so on. Okay, so when releasing, the momentum of the forward movement is released, you feel the nature of the water element in a sense of looseness of the materiality. Okay? And then when dropping down, pressing, you feel the heaviness, the hardness and softness of the earth element. So this is what the yogi experienced when noting carefully the process of walking from beginning to the end. Okay? So in actual experience, in actual practice, of course, the yogi experienced much more than just this. Okay, so the commentary here just explained in actually quite generally. Okay, there's much more than this. For example, before the foot lifted up, you may feel a sensation of pressure, right? Hardness, stretching, and so on. So the description and commentary is still very general, but it gives you an idea of what the yogi discerns during the practice. Okay? Or what the yogi is supposed to discern during the practice. Okay? Notice here that the commentary did not mention anything about the sensation on the surface of the skin, right, or the foot, whether on top or below. It didn't mention anything about this. right? So sometimes yogi report, I feel cool wind blowing, I feel tingling on the skin below, and so on. So the commentary didn't mention anything about this. Why? It's not part of the process of walking. So you could also feel this sensation on your other part, skin, on other parts of the body. Okay? This is not part of the process of walking. This is not walking meditation. If anything, it's just a secondary object. So, and you're not supposed to note it if they are not prominent. Okay? You're supposed to focus on the process of walking. Okay? So commentary only mentioned just the process of walking and the experience of the nature of elements connected with the walking process, the sensation that is felt as the foot lifted up, as it pushes forward, as it places down. Okay, and this sensation is more within the foot, not on the surface of the skin. It's within, inside. Okay? So when you practice walking meditation, you need to place your attention at the foot and feel the sensation from the inside. Okay? As it lifts out, as it pushes forward, as it places down, feel the sensation from the inside of the foot, not on the surface. Okay? So you just pay attention on the surface of the skin. You won't be able to experience all the elements as described in the commentary. Okay, the lightness, the pushing, the heaviness, the hardness, and so on. You won't be able to feel this if you feel just on the skin. Okay. Now, some yogis they report about experience of particles, right? So, is there any mention about experience of particles in the commentary? Yeah, you mentioned nothing about that. In fact, Mahasi Sayadaw, in his book, the Manual of Insight, so he said this. He said some teachers who use the tranquility method of meditating on particles instruct that one should observe the foot moving forward and so on by imagining it as particle of dust. Right? So there's this method of meditation. Okay? Where when you contemplate the foot moving forward, so it's like they imagine this moving forward is like one particle, another particle, okay? A particle of dust. But this is not correct. According to Mahasi Sayadaw, this is not correct. Okay? Since the text instructs us to be aware of the air element, the wind element that is dominant at the moment of moving the foot forward. Okay, so when one is aware of the wind element, one will experience it in terms of, so here in terms of characteristic, function, manifestation. Okay, so one will experience it in terms of its ultimate characteristic of tension or pressure, or its function of motion. Okay, so the function of air element is to cause motion. Right? That's what it does. Okay? It causes motion. Okay? Even when it's supporting your body, also you feel your body sometimes move. That's motion. Okay, so or it's manifestation of conveyance. So manifestation means how it appears. Okay, so this wind element, it appears to be moving things from one place to another. You move the body from one place to another. Conveyance is conveying. So, so to experience the wind element means to experience it in terms of its characteristic, function, and manifestation. Okay. So the Sayadaw says, if one understands any one of these three aspects, characteristic, function, manifestation, then one's awareness of the wind element is accurate. Okay? Knowing the form of the food to be particles is actually a concept, not ultimate reality. Right? So this is what Mahasi Sayadaw said. Now, however, if a yogi experience, for example, nature of a wind element is pushing, right? You experience it in section, one pushing, another. Okay, and sometimes your noting becomes so refined that the section becomes smaller and smaller. Then sometimes this small section it might appear to the yogi as if it's like particle, right? One after another, very fine. In this case, this is correct. Okay, this is not something imagined. Okay, this is actually you're experiencing the nature of the wind element directly, but it's so refined. It's occurring continuously, one after another. Then it might appear as if it's like a particle. Okay. But if you see it in your mind, then that's imagined. Okay. So sometimes experience of reality comes with concept. So before Banganyana sets in, there always be concept that when you experience reality, still the mind form an idea of it. Right? So when you are watching this very fine section of the wind element one after another, so for some yogis, and they may start to have this idea appear. These are like particles. Okay, so but they are very clear that they are experiencing this. Okay, so sometimes I question, what is this particle? And then they can report clearly. They can answer clearly. What is it? That these are just refined, pushing one after another. If I ask you, what is this particle? You cannot answer. Then go and note some more. And if the yogi is noting carefully, noting clearly, so the yogi will also notice that at the moment when the foot lifted up, so first there's an intention, giving rise to the materiality of lifting. Okay, so there's intention, and then there is the materiality of lifting. Okay, and both this mental and physical nature, this intention and this materiality of lifting, both of them arises and disappear right there. Okay? They do not arrive at the phase of pushing forward. Okay? So they arise right there when it's lifted up, and then they disappear there. Okay? So when you start pushing forward, they already disappear. Okay? They do not arrive at the phase of pushing forward. Okay? So similarly, in the phase of pushing forward, there's also the intention and the materiality connected with the pushing forward. Those also arise and disappear right there. Okay? They do not arrive at the phase of pushing beyond. Okay? And also at the phase of pushing beyond also there's the intention and the materiality of pushing beyond. that also arises and disappears right there. It doesn't arrive at the phase of releasing of the momentum of pushing forward. So when it releases, they already disappear. Okay. Then releasing also has intention, and then the materiality are releasing. Okay? And that also arises and disappears right there. Okay? It doesn't reach into the phase of dropping down. Okay? So in dropping down also is also intention, and then the movement, and the materiality, and those also arises and disappear there. They do not reach to the phase of pressing down. And pressing down also again is intention and the materiality of pressing, and they also arise and disappear right there. Okay? So the yogi can discern clearly that this process of walking from beginning to the end is just a mental physical process going on. This act of walking is just a mental and physical process going on. Just pairs of mental and physical nature arising and disappearing in pairs, one after another, section by section, phase by phase. They are continuously breaking up. So breaking up continuously. Okay? So commentary says, compare it to the sesame seeds. When you throw it into the hot pan, it crackles. It goes, so this mental physical nature, they are disappearing, breaking up continuously. Okay? Yeah. And the yogi actually experience it like this. Okay? When the mind is very clear. Okay? So who's going forward is it? Whose movement is it? Who is going forward? So in the ultimate sense, there's only selfless elements, mental, physical element going forward. Only elements that return, elements that stands, that sits down, that lies down. So there's no person, no being, no self here that goes forward or return and so on. Okay? No, is the going forward and returning and so on caused by a self, a person, a being. Okay? Yeah. So this is called asammoha sampajanya, clear comprehension and non-delusion in the act of walking, going forward, returning and so on. Yeah. So the Buddha says, abhikante patikante sampajana karihoti. So in going forward and returning, one practices or applies clear comprehension. Okay? So not just clear comprehension and non-delusion. Right? So the other three clear comprehension can also be applied. Right? So when before going forward or before returning, you can consider with a clear mind whether it's beneficial to go forward or return, whether it's suitable to go forward or return. Okay? And then clear comprehension of domain. So you remain noting continuously the act of going forward, the act of returning. Okay, so you do not separate mindfulness from this act of going forward and returning. You hold the mindfulness continuously there, observing them, noting them. Okay? And so this is called applying or practicing clear comprehension in going forward and returning. Okay? Now, according to the commentary, okay, going forward and returning is found not only during walking. Okay? So it can apply also to the other three postures. So standing, sitting, and lying down. So when you are standing, so sometimes your body sway to the front. That's going forward. And sometimes it goes backwards. That's called returning. Okay. That also you must be clear. You must apply clear comprehension. So you must note it, see its nature clearly. Okay. Sitting also, sometimes the body slouch to the front, right? Curl to the front, especially when you have no energy. Or sometimes because the wind element is too strong, pushing forward. So note that. There's clear comprehension in going forward. Okay? Sometimes I push to the back. That's called returning. Okay? And then as for lying down, the commentary didn't explain. Right? But it just says that the same applies. So how, when lying down, how to go forward and return? Yeah. I think when you turn to the side, okay, that's going forward. And then when you turn back and lie down on your back, that's returning. So since they didn't explain, so we can interpret ourselves. So that's one way, going forward, returning. Otherwise, how? Maybe when you get up. So sometimes when you adjust, maybe you adjust your pillow, then you lift out a bit, and then you go back down. That can also be going forward and returning. Okay, so that also must be noted with clear comprehension. Okay, so that is called applying clear comprehension in going forward and in returning. Okay, so we stop here today. Imaya Dhammanu Dhamma Patipatiya Buddham Pujemi. Imaya Dhammanu Dhamma Patipatiya Dhammam Pujemi. Imaya Dhammanu Dhamma Patipatiya Sangham Pujemi. Imaya Dhammanu Dhamma Patipatiya Mata Pitunam Pujemi. Imaya Dhammanu Dhamma Patipatiya Acharyanam Pujemi. Adha Imaya Patipadaya Jaram Ranamha Parimochisami. Idame Punyam Asavakaya Vaham Hotu. Idame Punyam Nibbanasa Pacayo Hotu. Idame Silam Magaphalanyanasa Pacayo Hotu. Imam no Punya Bhagam Sabbasatanam Dema. Imam no Punya Bhagam Sabbasatanam Dema. Imam no Punya Bhagam Sabbasatanam Sadanam Dema Sadhu Sadhu Sadhu. So may all of you be well, happy and peaceful always. May all of you be always healthy, safe and strong. May you all be able to practice the Dhamma continuously without any obstacle, without any trouble. May your practice always be smooth, and soon may your practice carry you to the experience of the unconditioned peace of Nibbana.